Hurley Haywood is on the show today, so you know I'm excited about that. I grew up in Jacksonville, and Hurley had such a long career in Jacksonville with the Brumos Porsche folks that I do reminisce a little bit about Jacksonville, so please bear with me as we go through that. I'm just trying to ask maybe some questions that you haven't heard before in an interview with Hurley, and he was super kind and gracious, had a ton of fun. Couple updates before we get to my sponsors as well as the interview. First off, check out Motor Week from this week. I was really surprised. I went to a golf outing Monday night, 9 holes with some friends, and a guy came up to me and said, "All I saw was you on Motor Week on PBS." I'm like, "Oh, really? That's cool." They reviewed the book, which was a very nice review. I will put a link in this description for it. You have to excuse the Blair Witch Handycam aspect of it because I was videotaping from my phone to my TV. I didn't know a better way to do it offhand. So I'll put a link if you'd like to see that little bit of a video. Octane, their current magazine with 2 Jaguars on the front cover. I believe it's 2 Jaguars. They just did a review as well, very positive as well. If you're not on my newsletter, I did a fun one about giving books away to kids during Monterey Car Week. I got a ton of responses, and I'm super thrilled to announce I have a couple folks that said, "Hey, I want to support this endeavor," and they bought a couple cases of books at my cost, just to for me to give out to kids at future Concours events. So if you would like to sponsor a kid, so to speak, by buying some books at my cost, I will give them out at your favorite car show if I can make it. Otherwise, I'll give it at one of the car shows I'm currently going to. So it was a wonderful time in Monterey. If you go back to my shorts on YouTube, you'll see I did a daily diary. They're like 90 seconds. They're not super long. Just all the craziness that happened. And as always, super thankful to Broad Arrow Auctions for being the primary sponsor of not only this podcast, but for my book series, The Enthusiast Guide to Porsches. I'm hard at work. I've been working on it for about a year. The book is like 85-90% done. I'm just soliciting contributors at this point. So I think the publication date will largely depend on how quickly I hear back from the contributors. And I will be at Luftgekühlt. So if you've never been to Luftgekühlt like myself, or if you go every year, let me know if you're going to be in Atlanta, October, I believe it's October the 8th. I hope to have a new ride that I drive down there and enjoy. Not an air-cooled car, but maybe a liquid-cooled 911 would be really nice. That's what I'm shooting for. So if you have one for sale privately and would like to see me running around in it, please shoot me a note, greg@thecollectorcarpodcast.com. Now let's get on to the sponsors, and then let's get on to our interview with Hurley. Imagine 2 identical vehicles, same year, options, mileage, price, and possibly even color. The only difference? One had $15,000 in collision repairs. Which one would you buy? The undamaged one, because clean vehicle history preserves value. That's what diminished value is, the loss of your vehicle's worth after an accident, even if it's repaired perfectly. Supercarclaims.com can assist owners nationwide in the recovery of diminished value and loss of use due to the negligence of another party. When it comes to exotic, collectible, and high-end vehicles, damage history will significantly reduce resale value. Don't let a dirty vehicle cost you. They are not just lawyers, they are car enthusiasts and collectors fighting for your rightful compensation. Free consultation, performance-based services. You don't pay unless we win for you. If you're a collector, you already understand stewardship, preserving what matters, planning ahead, and passing things on the right way. That's exactly how Peristyle Wealth approaches financial planning. As the Ferrari Club of America's official wealth management partner, they help avid collectors who value resilience and attention to detail. And the founder, John Suarez, is active in the community. I've judged one of his cars before, and I see him at events all over the country. To learn more, go to peristylewealth.com. Peristyle Wealth advisory services offered through New Edge Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor.
Every garage is a mirror of the mind that builds it. The garage becomes a quiet dialogue between who you are and what you craft. A garage is where work becomes meditation and solace, where mechanical truth becomes mental clarity. Some people go to offices, some go to mountains, others go to garages. At Metron Garage, we build for people who do all 3. Give us a call to get started.
If you own a collector car, you already know it deserves more than a standard insurance policy. NCM Insurance specializes in agreed value coverage designed specifically for classic collector and enthusiast vehicles. From weekend drivers to serious collectors, they understand how these cars are used, stored, and protected. To learn more about protecting your collector car the right way, visit ncminsurance.com. Coverage built for the cars you care about. Every car in your garage tells a story: where it's been, how it's been maintained, and what makes it truly yours. Carport gives you a simple digital garage to document, organize, and manage your vehicles all in one place. Track service history, store important records, and keep your collection dialed in with confidence. From your daily driver to your dream car, Carport keeps everything in order so you're always ready for the road. And best of all, it's free to use and is 100% private. To learn more, go to carport.app. All right, welcome to the Collector Car Podcast. I'm very excited today because I have a racing legend, Hurley Haywood. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good.
Well, I really appreciate you being on the podcast. As you know, I have a new book coming out, coming in hopefully in October, called The Enthusiast Guide to Porsche, and I appreciate your contribution. That's awful kind of you. And nobody probably is more equipped to contribute about Porsches than you. But before we talk about that, I grew up in Jacksonville. A lot of your stuff happened in Jacksonville. So could you go back to the fun story of you at Winn-Dixie back in the 60s and how you weren't even attempting to be a race car driver? You just kind of, your career kind of happened. Is that right?
Well, yeah, it was I had a really fast Corvette in college, and we had an autocross that was run in a Winn-Dixie parking lot.
Which
And
Winn-Dixie? I'm curious because I grew up in Jacksonville. Is it?
I think it was on Roosevelt Road
Okay. Yep.
Boulevard, and Peter Gregg was there, and I beat him at the autocross. We had a runoff, and I beat him. And he came up, and I really didn't know who Peter Gregg was at that point. I knew that he had something to do with the Brumos dealership, but that was about it. And he came up and he said, that's pretty good to beat me. And he invited me back to his house for dinner, and his wife was cooking dinner, and she and I, became great friends, and are still great friends even to this day. So it was just a chance meeting, and it kind of all fell together. Everything lined up perfectly, and I was still basically a teenager at that point in college, and he knew that I wanted to get started in racing, so he said, "I'll help you order your first car from Porsche." And it arrived, and he said, "I'll teach you how to drive it." So we went up to Savannah, Roebling Road, and after the first day, I was quicker than he was.
Wow.
So he saw something there that he might be able to, make work. And he we the first race that we were in together was 1969 at Watkins Glen. I won that race with him, and won the GT portion of it. And I was sitting on cloud nine, man. I was just really stoked about it. And then I got my draft notice. So that
Wow.
was in June. I was in boot camp and on my way to Vietnam in November of that year. So I had about a little over a year pause, and then I came back in 71 and started racing with Peter, and the rest is history.
Wow. There's so much there. So first off, what was the Corvette?
A 427 Nicky Chevrolet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So Nikki, how'd you get Nikki? I mean, that's not an average car back in the day.
Well, um, it's kind of a long story, but when I graduated from high school, uh, I talked my family into getting me a motorcycle. And my mother had been reading about how dangerous motorcycles were and blah, blah, blah. And so she said, I said to her, "Well, Mom, I'm really used to this kind of performance." And she said, "Well, look around, see what you want." And I waited until my father was out of town, and I took her down to Nicky Chevrolet, and she said, "Oh, that looks just like you." And I said, "Under no circumstances do you start this car." And so ended up getting it, and I took that to college with me, and um, was basically unbeatable in Florida. So um,
You must have been quite the salesman on top of quite the race car driver, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, my mother was, clueless as far as cars go. So she looked at it and she said, "Oh, that looks like you." So,
Do you know where that car is today? That's quite a rare car.
man, I wish I did. I sold it when I started racing with Peter. He said the first thing you got to do is get rid of the Corvette, and so I said okay. And um, a Navy guy bought it from me. I think I sold it to him for $4,000, and then I've just lost track. I wish I knew where that car was because that was a really cool car.
You know, I'll ask my Uncle Jack. He's a guest on one of my future podcasts. He's a Navy guy out of NAS Jacks. And in the 60s, he had a 63 409 Impala. He bought it in 66 as his first car. So he was a big Corvette guy. I'll have to ask him, what color was it? Do you remember?
Midnight Blue.
Now, did it have the wild side pipes and the flared fenders, all that Nicky stuff?
Yep, knockoffs on the wheels and side exhaust 427, and Nicky had done some work on it. It wasn't a new car; it was a used car, and had done some work on it, and it was producing 500 plus.
Yeah. Now,
So,
did Peter Gregg ever say, huh, I should maybe get a Corvette? That's pretty cool.
well,
Or,
he started his when Peter was in college. He had a Corvette,
I didn't know that. Okay.
and yeah, and he used to autocross it, and so he was familiar with Corvettes, but not not to the extent that my Corvette was. It was
Now,
almost unbeatable.
yeah, now you went to Jacksonville University where my parents actually met and graduated. And that's a great university. Go Dolphins, right?
Yep, go Dolphins is right.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now,
Artist Gilmore days.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Now, when you won that first race, that was what, Watkins Glen?
Yep.
Now, didn't you somehow beat some 917s where they were, you had to go around them quite a bit? I mean, you had some pretty heavy hardware against you, didn't you?
Well, we remember now. It wasn't. We didn't win the race overall. We
You won your
won
class.
close,
Yep.
and that was two just the whole 2.5 liters all the way up to 7 liter Corvettes. And it was a 6 hour race. We just ran them down into the bushes, and they broke, and we were quick enough to maintain the pace, but uh, I think attrition took
Yeah.
most of the field out.
Right, right. Now, is that particular Porsche still around? We know where that car is today?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a little bit of no, it's not. That car
We
was
know where maybe
so,
parts of it are.
yeah, parts of it. Stuff like most cars that claim to be, that's a 73 winner, but it might have the hood of that car, but
Right.
that's not the original car. The original car was destroyed at the factory.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service at Vietnam. And now you come back, and it seemed like you didn't miss much of a beat when you came back, right?
No, it started right away, and it was I had a leave for the weekend, uh, rotating out of the army, and went to VIR for the race, and the commander of the base happened to be a big sports car fan, and he didn't know who Hurley Haywood from a hole in the wall, and he saw the race, saw me win, didn't know that I was part of his military personnel at the base, and I was in the paper the base paper the next day. So I got a call that the commander wants to see you, and I said, "Oh, that's good. This is not good." And he said, I watched the race, watch you race, and you have a lot of talent, and you need to get out of the army quickly. So he let me get out. So anyway,
I know you've famously, you won two 24-hour races in the same year, Daytona and Le Mans. How do you survive back in the day? I mean, it's a lot different today, but I imagine, the endurance part is still the same. How did you prep for that? I mean, today, it's special diets, it's all sorts of stuff. How did you prep for it back in the day?
Well, I'm a little embarrassed to say. I mean, there was physically there was very little preparation. I mean, Peter and Greg and myself, like in the 24 hours at 70 in 73, we slept in the back of the trailer and ate, McDonald hamburgers. Nowadays, you have big, gigantic motorhomes and you have your own personal chef and a nice, comfortable bed to sleep in. All the doctors there taking care of you. I mean, it's a completely different program, but it just worked. And back then we didn't know any better. And so, you know, as time went on and the cars became more complicated to drive and faster, then we started looking, we got it. They soon realized that, keeping the performance up on the driver's side was very important as much as the car. So um, there was a big push to, bring a lot of the stuff they have today, which is pretty common, but back to the forefront back then. So,
Wow. Now, can you share like, some crazy story? You're racing long hours at a time where there was an issue. It could have been a malfunction, could have been you're just had upset stomach, it could have been something crazy you just had to deal with while you're racing because you got to keep the times up. It could be anything. I mean, it could be your side view mirror got busted. Any fun kind of stories from those races that you're just like, I can't believe I kept going throughout that trial.
well, well, the ones that is documented is the seagull through the windshield at Daytona in 1973 when we won that race.
Yeah.
And so I was, we were being careful, super careful with the car, and I was doing maybe 175 or so down the back straight, and hit a seagull, trying to get out of the way, and he just wasn't quick enough, and he basically went through the windshield. It shattered the whole windshield, splintered it. I called in. We were one of the only teams that had radio communications, and I said, a seagull just, I just crashed into a seagull, and he broke the windshield. And so they didn't have a spare windshield. So they said, "We'll keep on going. If the windshield, collapses on you, then come in and we'll try to fix it." So luckily, about 3 laps later, they found a windshield and put the windshield in, and away we went. So uh, we learned our lesson from, being prepared for that kind of stuff. And that's just the kind of thing that Peter was so successful with and so renowned for is he thought of every possible scenario that could happen. In 73, this was the first time we really had a chance to do well. And that was something that we just didn't think about was a windshield. And we didn't have a spare. So luckily we found one.
Yeah, now it's amazing that that first informal amateur race that you beat Peter Gregg with a really wicked Corvette. But where does that need for speed or that I don't know where did that taste for speed come from? Like, how did you adapt to it so quickly? Did you have little wooden go-karts you would race around as a kid?
Well, my mother says that when I was a baby in a crib, that I would throw all the cuddly toys out onto the floor, and I would keep the metal cars in the crib. So it started, I started driving a full size. It was a 1948 Studebaker truck, and I drove that car on my grandmother's farm in Wheaton for 4 years. Never got caught. Our farm foreman built some special blocks on the pedals that so I could reach them, and away I went. And I just drove the wheels off that thing. And I didn't know what understeer was. I didn't know what oversteer was, but I knew that if I went into a corner too fast, the thing would just plow through it, and I would lose the steering. So, you know, by the time I was 16 and got my driver's license, I was, pretty adept to the cars.
So let me make sure people understood what you just said. How old were you at that time?
12.
At 12, Studebaker truck, 49,
Yep. 40,
and
48.
and
48 Studebaker.
someone at the farm strapped wooden blocks onto the pedals so that you could reach them.
Yep.
Wow.
Exactly. And before that, we had go-karts and all that kind of stuff. So, I was good behind the wheel. I mean, when you drive a go-kart, driving a go-kart and driving a car are in some cases very similar, but in other cases completely different. So it was just one of the things that I learned when younger kids now ask, what do I do? What are the important things that I have to think about? And I said two things. One, you got to be patient when you're driving a race car. And two, you have to adapt to change. Because the minute the car starts to move, it changes its dynamics. The tires get hot, the motor gets hot, brakes get hot, and you just have to adapt to those. And some people can adapt very quickly, and others never were able to adapt to it. I think that was the key.
It's interesting you say that because I saw an interview with Verstappen. He mentioned one of the competitive edges he has over his competitors is how to respond in those situations. And he mentioned his dad would throw out all these crazy scenarios you would think would never happen on the racetrack, but his dad made him practice them and found that it actually worked. He found himself in some of those crazy situations, and his reaction time either saved the car or it kept pace up.
Yeah,
Is that something you see nowadays? Like the best drivers, they're able to adapt quickly to the environment around them.
yeah. I mean, it's the today the racing is so completely different than it was when I was racing, and there I was the thing I really liked about racing, regardless of what kind, whether it's a 911 or 917, all those cars, the driver was responsible for the um, ability of that car to go around a corner. And so but nowadays, all of that stuff is done electronically. You have
Mm.
electronic shifting, electronic brakes, ABS, traction control, all those things now are governed by a computer. And there's a, squad of people sitting in the pits looking at every dynamic of the car. And then they radio back to the driver, do this, do that, look at when you look at a modern day steering wheel, I mean, it's like a spaceship. And
Hmm.
there is just, I couldn't drive like that. I'm so happy that I was able to be in the era that I raced in because I had one standing um, order into the pits. Don't talk to me unless I ask you a question or if I'm on fire. Then you can talk to me.
Now that you mean literally on fire. You don't mean like,
Literally on fire.
right,
Yeah.
literally on fire.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because you're in the zone at that point, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you've got to keep it all going. Now, what made what made Porsche so special to you that that's what you wanted to race?
Well, my relationship with Porsche has spanned over 50 years. And I very quickly, and with Peter's encouragement, one, got rid of the Corvette, two, started racing Porsches. And I found that the fit with the Porsche really suited my driving style. And when you were driving with Porsche, especially in the beginning, one, I was driving for one of the best teams in sports car racing, Brumos Porsche, and two, I was being tutored by Peter, and um, that sort of started um, my ability to analyze what was going on, and quickly realized that if you were driving a Porsche, your chances of winning the race or doing well in the race were greatly improved. All the rest of the cars would have mechanical issues, would have all kinds of stuff. So Porsche, though it wasn't the quickest car on the track at any given point, it was the most stable and
Right.
consistent car,
Reliable.
and
Yeah.
and that's what won the races: consistency.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, can you speak to your incredible victory in '73 at Daytona a little bit?
Well, That was one of those deals where I think from Porsche's standpoint, it was just a test. We were driving an RS body, but the internal parts were all from the RSR. And they wanted to test that to make sure that everything worked properly and were durable.
Hmm.
So we had a car and Roger Penske had a car. And Peter, biggest thing was to beat Roger Penske. And uh, I became a good friend of Mark Donahue's and George Fulmer. George, tried to, when I was following him, and it was a real learning process when you're following somebody of that talent. You learn a lot.
Yeah.
And, uh, he would try to force me to, go off track a little bit and maybe flat spot a tire or pick up a stone and get a
Right.
flat tire. And so I wasn't going to fall for any of that stuff. So um, that was a race. We were battling back and forth with Penske, and then they had a motor problem and went out. So we were cruising in cruise mode. I think we won by like 75 miles or something. And um, but it was Norbert Singer, who was the godfather of a lot of the most successful race cars from Porsche. He was trying to get us to slow down, and basically Peter says, "Listen, don't slow down. Just keep the momentum up, because if you slow down, you'll get out of the rhythm, and then that's when the problems start." So we kind of ignored what Singer was saying, but um, Peter was right. When you have a rhythm going, um, and that's interfered with by slowing down and not shifting at the normal spot, you just get out of sync, and that's when the problems start.
Right. Yeah. No, that's amazing. So you're able to carry that theory or that directive throughout the race and end up doing very well. Sorry, my cat's making a surprise appearance here.
Don't
Uh,
let my dog see him.
oh, that's not good. Now, what is one of your what would you say maybe your top one or two Porsches that you raced of all time? I know that's a big question, but I know there's probably one or two that stuck in your mind. They might not have been the fastest, but maybe they were the most enjoyable, easiest to control.
Well, any car that I've driven with Porsche is a favorite. But if you say, what is your favorite car from Porsche that you've ever raced?
Right.
I would have to say the 936, the car, the last rendition. I won the 24 hours of Daytona or Le Mans with that car in '77, but the latest rendition of that car we ran in 1981,
Mm,
and that was the 936 with the Indy Porsche motor in it, and that was absolutely a sweetheart. We didn't finish. We had some problems, electrical problems. It was raining really badly, and but that was a really beautifully balanced car. Everything was just perfect. But that whole series of cars from the 936 all the way to the last one, everyone was great to drive. So
right.
that would be kind of my favorite. But every one, in the Brumos collection down in Jacksonville, we've got the all the 911s, basically all of the renditions of the 911s, starting back in the late '60s, all the way to the modern cars, to the latest RSRs from the factory. And I got the 91710 that I drove, which was probably the most scariest car I've ever driven, but that was a real handful. And the guy that really helped me adjust to that car was Mark Donahue. And he gave me some very, very good advice. He said, you have to remember that I was making the transition from a 911 300 horsepower car with very little downforce into a 917 that had 1200 horsepower with tons of downforce. So the transition was a huge jump. And Mark said, listen, take little steps and eventually you'll catch up. And if you take too big of a step too early, that car can turn around and bite you. So I was very careful and listened to his advice, and it worked out. I was third in the championship that year. Mark was first, George was second, and I was third. So
Yeah. Wow, that's great. Now, what are your memories from racing on a 914.6?
I love the 914.6. That was just a great car, mid-engine. We were the underdogs. We were, never a factor, but that car was so reliable, so fast. And, the guys at Brumos really tweaked that car. So it was really uh, light years ahead of anything else on the racetrack at that time. And so, um, yeah, that was a great car. I love the way it looked. It was just really fun to drive it. You could, get it way out of shape and recover. So there was always a lot of confidence in that car.
I should have worn my Brumo's blue jacket I have that I got last time I was at the museum there. What's the significance of number 59? I don't think I know this answer.
You don't know that? Oh,
No,
man, that's
that's shame on me.
right. 59, Peter was in the military. Um, he was a naval officer, intelligence officer. And one day they were going to take a fixed wing aircraft and airplane and landing it on an aircraft carrier. And as they were circling the aircraft carrier, Peter looked down, and on the bow of the boat, there was a number 59. And Peter liked the font of that number. So he said, that's going to be my racing number, 59. And that's how that whole thing started. And, that number, when you see that number, you immediately think of Brumos.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
And
I loved growing up in,
that coupled with the red, white, and blue stripe
yeah. I
is,
remember growing up as a little kid, it was always this weird Porsche, not weird, but this Porsche place on the east side of town. I lived up down in Mandarin area. And it was always far away for us, so I never made the visit out there. When I got into cars, it was like Mustangs and muscle cars. So I didn't get the Porsche bug till after I was out of Jacksonville, unfortunately. What made Peter Gregg so successful as a instructor?
well, Peter really, he didn't instruct a lot, but he instructed me.
Yeah,
And, you learn from watching and you learn from keeping your mouth shut. And this is something that I learned in the military. You took orders and you didn't question them. You just did them because that's what you had to do. And that kind of military background, I think, helped me through all of the transitions that we went through with Peter. And when Peter um, passed away, it was, that was really difficult. And but he taught me the principles on what is important, and preparation was always the key with him. You want to be prepared for anything, and you wanted to take into account every possible scenario that could happen on the racetrack and make sure that you had the right parts, you had everything right there. And Peter, was sort of mimicking what Roger Penske was all about, which was what Roger did. And so the two of them were very much alike as far as the preparation of the race cars and the execution of the racecraft. And that was one of the reasons why Penske and Peter were so successful in racing. They never overlooked anything.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yes, amazing. Now, let me make sure I get this right. You won Daytona 5 times, Le Mans 3 times, and Sebring twice.
Yep,
Now,
you
is
got
there
it.
is there one victory or moment that stands out above the others? I mean, that's a big ask, but usually after so many years, there's some stuff you just can't get out of your brain.
Well, if you took the race that really showcased me as a driver was the 73 win at Daytona.
Mhm.
And uh, all of the factory people were there. Norbert Singer was there. And they watched how I adapted to the race scenario. And then we went on to win Sebring the same year, couple months after the race at Daytona, and then I went into the 917.
Mm,
So I had a huge jump, and they saw that and they said, this kid has got to be pretty good. So I think the race that really showcased the talent was Daytona, the 73 Daytona.
right.
And that got me up on the radar screen at Porsche. And then, the rest is history, as they say.
So today, are you acting as brand ambassador? What's your role in the racing world and the Porsche world?
Well, I'm still involved with Porsche. I'm still an ambassador for them. I don't have a huge schedule that I have to do, kind of, do what I want to do, but it's a nice relationship, and they've been so good to me over the years that, it's a relationship that I really am very proud of. And all the people I've seen, all the people come through, and the drivers, it's a Porsche is a real family, and they look after the family. They're not just, some drivers, skip around to whoever's offering the most amount of money or whoever has the fastest car. They want to go there. But I learned very quickly that if you want to have a good relationship in racing, you'll stick with one manufacturer, and the best manufacturer in the world is Porsche.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I had a friend that recently passed away, John Higgins. Did you know John
Yeah,
Higgins?
sure. Yeah, I know it.
Yeah, he recently passed away, and before he did, I got a quote from my Porsche book coming up from him, and he mentioned pretty much the same thing you just said. It was the culture and the community that kept him with Porsche for so many years.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. He echoed pretty much exactly what you just said about Porsche. Well, that's great to hear. That's very, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think any of the sort of the senior gangs will say the same thing, because back then, I mean, it was really a family deal. And once you were able to get your foot in the door, then you could spend your whole professional career with one manufacturer, with the same people all the time that you're
Yeah.
dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's really cool.
that's really is special for me anyway.
Well, just a few more questions because I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I don't think you can tell. I got some Porsche stuff on the wall here. One of them I'm proud of is the World Championship poster there on the left from 1970 with the 917.
Yep.
Um, that's a real one. I actually found it in a collection, which is really cool. Do you have any automobilia or car parts back in your racing days stuffed away or on the walls of your garage?
Not well. I've got a few. I sold my house in St. Augustine, and so I'm building a new house very close to where the collection is. And I had some really cool photographs in the garage in Water Street, but most of that stuff now is housed in the collection, the Brumos collection. So if you are a racing fan, uh, or a fan of Porsche and you're in Jacksonville, that is one stop that you absolutely have to make.
Yeah.
In the old days, we used to keep all those cars at the dealership, in the backside of the Mercedes-Benz showroom, and um, it got to be large. And then Dan Davis said, I'm going to build a proper location for our cars, and he built the most beautiful,
Oh, it's gorgeous.
well executed place that you've ever seen. I mean, from the staircases to doorknobs to wood paneling, everything is perfect.
Yeah, yeah, it's stunning. So we can find some of that there. I do want to ask you. I'll name my top two. You name your top two. Top two favorite restaurants in Jacksonville and St. Augustine. I'll go first. St. Augustine, Caps on the Water. Always love Caps on the Water, and Osteen Shrimps or Osteen's that has
Yeah,
the shrimp, fried shrimp, butterfly, special pepper sauce. You got to stand outside for like 30 minutes before you can get inside.
yeah, those two, Caps is great. It's so crowded now that it's just, you can't get in. And then, of course, Osteen's got a lot of tourists that go
Yeah.
there. But, there's, a couple restaurants um, that we went to all the time. And one is Sagno,
Okay.
which
Yeah.
is over on the Anastasia, and uh, really nice people, and French Pantry.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Never been.
that's pretty
Yeah.
good. Yeah, it's in a brand new building, really well done, and that two sizes. So you either can have Asian food or contemporary food, and two restaurants that are in the same area but very different. So, those are two. But then in Jacksonville, I haven't been in Jacksonville. I've been, 13 years in St. Augustine. So coming back, it's just sort of um, a new menu that we have to sort of learn. The one place I go to a lot is JJ's.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. I went
yeah,
there last time I was in town. Someone told me
the-
about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little French restaurant owned by a great guy. Loves wine. He's probably got one of the most exclusive wine selections in all of North Florida. So he's really a good guy. And then um, the clubs are good. The Ponte Club
Yeah.
was really great, but now it's been under construction, so that's but it'll soon be back running full blast again.
Yeah, yeah, it's such a great place, such a great place to grow up. We always had a great time there. Now, I'm actually, by the time this posts, which won't be for a couple weeks, I'll be back from my trip, but I'm headed to Jacksonville to hang out with Bill Warner in his warehouse. And for my Porsche book, he's offered to let me grab whatever a picture I want out of his files from the 60s, 70s, 80s on the racetrack. I think he said he had like a picture of Penske and an RSK or something from the 60s. But uh, do you know, I'm assuming you know Bill Warner fairly well. Is there any picture I should dig out of the archives that you know he has, maybe?
Well, he's got. Have you gotten the Hurley book?
No, I do not have the Hurley book. I need to get the Hurley book.
You definitely need to get the Hurley book. Uh, we're sold out, so you have to find it on the internet,
Okay. Yep.
and they have a pretty big premium on that book. But if you have a chance, go to the to the collection and ask for Brandon Starks. He's our,
Yep. I know
you know, Brandon.
Brandon. Yep.
Okay, and he'll pull out a book for you. We have the Hurley book, and then we have the whole history. It's a 3-volume book done by Sean Cridlin that traces the name Brumos and going back into the 50s.
Right.
And so that is definitely, and in that book there is a ton of Bill's photographs, and there's some priceless stuff. And he did a thing with Al Crocker. You know who Al Crocker is?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Al Crocker was a great photographer, and he allowed Sean a lot to use his photos a lot in that book. So that was really a cool thing.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Yeah, see if I can get any surprise pictures while I'm down there review racing. I'll be sure to send them your way or let you know about them.
Well, I've got all the books. So,
Yeah, yeah. Now, last question. Do you have a cool car in your garage? And is it a Porsche?
of course, it's a Porsche. I have a 356 that was built by Rod Emery out in California,
Oh my goodness, yes.
and it is absolutely. I mean, it was a 5-year deal with him, and but it came out perfect, and it's Lago green metallic, um, and it's so cool to drive that car. You forget, the basics of what a steering wheel feels like without power steering, what manual transmission feels like, what brakes that aren't ABS brakes feel like, and you forget how great that feeling was. And in that 356, you really feel that. And all those older cars, Patrick Long once told me, he says, the most fun happens when the steering wheel is really big. Think about that
No,
for a
you're
minute.
right. You're right. It's like people are like, oh, it's much more fun to drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow.
Yeah,
Or,
exactly.
like it's the
Yeah.
experience for sure. That's a great point.
So,
Wow. Well, where can we see you next in the next coming months? You going to any of the shows? You going to
well,
Lift the Cult?
I'm sort of negotiating with the guys there. It's kind of a trek getting from Woodstock, Vermont to Atlanta. So we'll see. But I'll be back in the end of October. And so if you're down in that way and in during that month, you definitely give me a call.
Yeah, I'd love to go for a ride in that Emery. That would be really sweet.
Yeah, yeah,
Funny
it's
you said Woodstock. Of all the places in the world I've been in Vermont, the only place I've stayed for two Christmases in my life when I was a little kid and then my senior year in high school was Woodstock.
yeah.
That's hilarious. So,
I went to school in Vermont in Craftsbury Commons, which is northern Vermont, and swore that I would never set foot back in that state. But when you look after you graduate and you get started thinking about it, that whole experience up there was so worth it. I mean, I had a horse, and one of the deals that the school made was you can have the horse here, but you have to take care of it, which meant that getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and trudging down a mile to where the barn was in the middle of winter, I forget
oh,
that.
yeah.
So anyway, it was great, and so now I just love it up here. It's so great.
Oh my gosh, and you're staying through the peak fall colors, which is just unbelievable for
Yeah,
sure.
and we're gonna have tremendous colors up here because we've had a lot of rain.
Yeah.
Last year we were sort of drought riven, and so the foliage was not as vibrant as it usually is. But yeah, we're looking forward to that.
Yeah. Well, again, I appreciate you being on the Collected Car podcast. I appreciate your contribution to the Enthusiast Guide to Porsche, and I will take you up on that ride.
Okay, and say hello to Bill for me.
I will.
Okay.